Most major changes don't start with a brilliant idea. They start with something uncomfortable, something almost no one takes seriously. It wasn't a plan. It wasn't an ambition to change the world. It was a loss too small to make headlines. In 2010, a teenager named Vitalik Buterin was playing World of Warcraft, a game, a virtual universe controlled by a company. Until one day, a skill from his character simply disappeared. No discussion, no choice, no alternative. For millions of players, it was just another update. For Vitalik, it was a quiet alarm, because in that moment, something became clear, something people rarely question. When a system is centralized, the rules never truly belong to you. You can invest time, build reputation, commit for years, and still, one decision above you can change everything. Vitalik didn't get angry, he got uncomfortable. And that discomfort wasn't about the game, it was about the model. The question that surfaced wasn't emotional, it was structural. Why do systems that affect so many people depend on the will of so few? There was no immediate answer. The question stayed there, quiet, accumulating. Years later, while writing about Bitcoin, Vitalik found something powerful. Bitcoin solved money. It solved trust, and it removed the intermediary. But there was an invisible limit. Bitcoin was too solid to change. And because of that, it couldn't go further. You couldn't create complex rules. You couldn't program agreements. You couldn't build entire systems on top of it. And that's when the empty space appeared. Ethereum wasn't born as a new Bitcoin. It was born as an answer to a question no one was asking yet. What if decentralization wasn't just about value, but about rules that shouldn't depend on who holds control? At that moment, there was no hype, no demand, no market waiting for it. There was only an idea too dangerous to ignore. And when ideas like that meet code, they don't ask permission to grow. That's where the story truly begins. Most people think Ethereum was born from ambition. In reality, it was born from frustration. Vitalik understood Bitcoin deeply, and that's why he saw the ceiling. Bitcoin is immutable by design, conservative by necessity. Every change is treated like an existential risk. That's what makes it reliable. And that's also what makes it narrow. For Vitalik, the issue wasn't technical, it was conceptual. Bitcoin was a perfect tool for one function. But the real world isn't one function. Contracts aren't just payments. Systems don't run on money alone, they run on rules. And when rules are centralized, they always tilt towards someone. So he imagined something different, not a better currency, a foundation, a neutral layer where rules could exist without owners, where contracts could execute without permission, where code became the final authority. That idea was too large to fit inside Bitcoin. Not out of rejection, but out of respect for what Bitcoin chose to be. Vitalik didn't want to change Bitcoin. He wanted to build alongside it a global machine capable of running anyone's code, without censorship, hierarchy, or an off switch. To most people, it sounded excessive, risky, unnecessary. But unnecessary ideas have a habit of becoming obvious later, especially when they remove a hidden dependency. Vitalik didn't have a company. He didn't have traditional investors. He had a simple and radical proposal. The world doesn't need to trust people less. It needs to depend on them less. When that idea met developers, skeptics, and outsiders, Ethereum stopped being a concept. It started becoming infrastructure. At first, it grew strange, hard to explain, hard to use, hard to trust. But developers saw what it really was, an environment. A place where you could build markets, games, and financial systems without asking permission. Every new application made the network more valuable. Every mistake hardened the culture. Every attack tested the limits in public. And then came the moment that could have ended it. In 2016, the DAO, a major project built on Ethereum, was exploited due to a code flaw. Millions of dollars in Ether were trapped in a technical limbo. Critics called it proof that decentralization was a fantasy. Ethereum faced its hardest question. What matters more, immutable rules or trust in the system? The decision split the community. Debates turned ideological. And Ethereum chose to intervene to preserve the ecosystem's viability. The result was a hard fork, a transparent break, two paths, two philosophies, one that never rewinds and one that evolves under pressure. Vitalik stood with evolution, not because code doesn't matter, but because the network's survival mattered more than a perfect slogan. After that, Ethereum didn't become simpler, it became serious. Testing got stricter. Security became obsessive. The move fast era gave way to a culture that expects failure and designs for continuation. That's why years later, when billions began flowing through the network, DeFi, NFTs, stablecoins, institutional rails, Ethereum could fail in parts, adjust, and keep moving. Few systems survived their adolescence. Ethereum did, not because it was perfect, but because it was forced to mature early. And that maturity is what separates a promising project from real infrastructure. Ethereum didn't win by being simple. It won by becoming the default place where programmable value lives. Smart contracts, token standards, and an open playground for builders. When the rest of the market chases the next chain, the boring truth is that ecosystems compound where developers already are. And if you're watching this as an investor, that history matters. Because it explains why Ethereum behaves like a giant even when the price looks ordinary. A network that can absorb stress, fork openly, tighten security, and still keep settling value is not a story. It's a machine with battle scars. It also explains Vitalik's weird kind of power. He isn't a CEO with a kill switch. He's closer to a chief architect in a city that never stops running, pushing research, debating upgrades, shaping direction, while the system itself remains bigger than any one person. That's why Ethereum can evolve without becoming a dictatorship. The market loves clean narratives. Ethereum earned something harder, a track record of surviving mistakes, public pressure, and real money moving through real code. And that's what turns an experiment into infrastructure. In the future, when many things disappear, protocols, narratives, promises, what tends to remain isn't what made the most noise. It's what learned how to function in silence. If this video helped you see Ethereum beyond price, hit like and subscribe to the channel. Here, we don't chase hype, we study structures. And now tell me in the comments, have you ever bought Ethereum --? Or are you still watching this giant grow from the outside? Because some revolutions announce their arrival, others are already in operation.